Before everything crumbled, I truly believed I understood loneliness. I thought it was simply the quiet you learn to live with when life stops giving you surprises. But that was before the kind of betrayal that doesn't just break your heart, it rearranges your entire world. One day, I was just a nearly invisible old woman drifting through predictable routines. The next, I found myself standing at the edge of a life I never imagined could be mine. If you're here, stick with me. What happened next still feels unreal. Routine kept me stitched together more than I cared to admit. Every Monday morning, no matter the weather, I'd take the same 2-block walk to the old corner market on Maple Avenue. Same list every week: a loaf of bread, a small carton of milk, a couple of apples, and, if I felt bold enough, a chocolate bar I'd later pretend I regretted buying. At 73, even my quiet little town felt as if it moved faster than I could keep up. Especially with Harold gone for 15 years now, and my son, Daniel, having moved across the country, chasing a future that didn't include checking in on me very often. The house had grown colder over the years, or maybe I had. The radio's soft country music was usually the only voice in the house besides my own. And every Monday, without fail, I bought a lottery ticket. I always chose the same numbers: Daniel's birthday, my wedding date, and a pair of numbers my mother swore brought good luck. I didn't believe in luck anymore, but rituals are sometimes all that keep us tethered. That Monday seemed just like the dozens before it. I wrapped my scarf around my neck, gripped the handle of my worn little cart, and pushed myself against the brisk wind. Leaves crunched under my shoes as I made my way to Harper's Market. Inside, the familiar mix of detergent and fading produce filled the air. I picked up my usuals, adding the chocolate bar with a faint, amused sigh. The line stretched nearly to the back of the store. My legs ached as I leaned on the cart, trying to ignore the throbbing in my knees. That's when the overhead TV caught my attention. The local news was announcing the Power Pick numbers. I wasn't even going to look. After years of disappointment, hope barely flickered anymore. But habit made me pull out the ticket. 17. My heart twitched. 31. A slow breath caught in my throat. 5. My fingers tightened. 14:26. A buzzing filled my ears, and the power pick is 9. Every number matched perfectly. My vision blurred, my knees buckled, the world tilted, and then pure blackout. What I woke up to next wasn't joy. It was the beginning of the nightmare. When my eyes finally fluttered open, the world felt wrong. Too bright, too sterile. The ceiling above me buzzed with the soft hum of fluorescent lights, and the sharp scent of antiseptic clawed at my senses. For a terrifying moment, I couldn't remember where I was or why my chest felt tight with panic. Then my handbag. My hands flew across the stiff hospital blanket, searching, trembling. My purse, I croaked, hardly recognizing my own voice. A nurse appeared beside me, her expression gentle but businesslike. "You're okay, ma'am. Everything you came in with is right here." But I didn't breathe until I saw it, my worn handbag, perched on the bedside table. I reached for it with trembling fingers, pulling it to my chest. Inside, tucked exactly where I had hidden it, was the ticket. Wrinkled, bent, but safe. Real, mine. A knock sounded at the door. A young doctor, who looked like he'd barely graduated from high school, stepped inside with a clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Harrington?" he asked, offering me a cautious smile. "You gave us quite a scare." "I fainted," I managed. "You're dealing with a rough strain of the flu," he said gently. "Severe dehydration and exhaustion. At your age, recovery might take weeks, maybe months." Months. The word hit like a blow. But my mind wasn't on my health. It was on the ticket, hidden against my ribs, warming with the heat of my palm. Millions. Enough to change everything. Enough to rewrite my whole life. And there was only one person I could call my son. I hesitated, imagining the way things could go. Maybe he'd rush in, red-eyed and breathless, relieved that his mother was still alive. Maybe we'd sit together and laugh at the absurdity of it all. But when I dialed his number, reality answered. He picked up on the third ring. "Yeah, Mom. What is it?" No concern, no warmth, just impatience wrapped in a sigh. "I'm in the hospital," I said softly. "They say I'm really sick." Silence. A long, uncomfortable silence. "All right," he finally said. "I'll come by." He hung up before I could respond. 3 hours later, he strolled into the room with the energy of a man running an errand he didn't want to do. Hands in his coat pockets, face stiff, eyes scanning everything except me. "I'm all right," I whispered, offering a smile that felt too fragile. "Just weak. But I have something. We need to talk." He cut in. "About getting you into a facility." My breath caught. "A facility?" He didn't even blink. "You can't live alone anymore. It's time." He spoke about me like I was a burden he'd finally grown tired of carrying, all while my lottery ticket rested inches away, burning like a secret I suddenly didn't trust him with. I knew then whatever he wanted next wasn't for my sake, but I had no idea he was about to take me somewhere far worse than a simple facility. I didn't remember the car ride. Maybe that was for the best. When they wheeled me out of the hospital, bundled in a coat far too thin for the biting wind, I felt small, like a package being delivered, not a person being cared for. Daniel pushed the wheelchair with the detached efficiency of someone returning an item they regretted buying. The only time he spoke was to mutter, "Almost there," as if that made any of it easier to swallow. The building came into view through the car window, a crooked sign clinging to a rusted pole. Willow Haven Assisted Living. Nothing about it suggested haven. The paint on the exterior walls peeled in long strips. The windows were clouded, some cracked. The air, as Daniel helped me through the entrance, smelled of bleach, fighting a losing battle against mildew and stale air. Inside, no receptionist greeted us. A dusty television in the corner played cartoons to an audience of no one. A heavy-set nurse shuffled out from a back room, her expression as tired as the faded scrubs she wore. Paperwork, she grunted. Daniel shoved the forms at her without looking my way. She didn't ask me a single question, not even my name. She simply nodded, signed a few lines, and gestured toward a dim hallway. He patted my shoulder once, a hollow, lifeless gesture. Then he left. No hug. No, I'll visit. Not even a backward glance. The nurse wheeled me down the corridor, the wheels squeaking with every turn. I could feel eyes watching us, faces peeking from cracked doorways, worn-out bodies slumped in wheelchairs, minds drifting somewhere far from here. Forgotten souls. "This is your room," she said, pushing open a door with her hip. It was little more than a converted closet. A metal-framed bed sagged in the center of the room. The single window was so grimy it barely let in the afternoon light. A small wooden table leaned crookedly against the wall, one leg shorter than the others. The air smelled of dampness and chemicals. "Dinner's at 6. Lights out at 9, the nurse said flatly. Then she left without another word. For a long time, I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching my handbag as if it were a life preserver. I could feel the outline of the lottery ticket through the fabric, my one remaining lifeline. Proof that I didn't belong here. Proof that I could still escape. When the dinner bell rang, I shuffled to the dining hall. The meal looked like microwaved leftovers from 3 different decades. Rubbery chicken, cold potatoes, green beans that tasted like they had given up on life. An elderly man at another table glanced at me. "First day?" he asked, voice raspy. I nodded. He offered a sad, crooked smile. "Don't worry. You get used to being forgotten." Around me, people stared blankly at their trays, silent, alone, abandoned. By the time I returned to my room, the truth burned hot in my chest. Daniel didn't bring me here because he thought I needed help. He brought me here because he wanted me out of his way. But he had no idea that the secret inside my handbag was about to change everything, including how far I'd go to save myself. The next morning, I woke before the sun. Sleep didn't come easily in a place like Willow Haven. The walls creaked. The air vibrated with distant coughing, and every sound reminded me I didn't belong here. Not with what I knew. Not with what I carried. I wandered the dim hallways, moving slowly, leaning on the wall when my legs trembled. It didn't take long to discover the truth about this place. People weren't living here, they were waiting. Waiting for family who wouldn't come. Waiting for news they'd never receive. Waiting for time to finish what life had started. Mary was the first to talk to me. A soft-spoken woman with wispy white hair and gentle eyes. She sat by the window tracing shapes on the fogged glass. "My husband used to paint," she said. I wish I still had paints. I forget the colors sometimes. Her voice cracked. I just want to remember color. Then there was Thomas, a frail man whose hands shook so badly he could barely hold his fork. But when he spoke about the little hardware shop he once owned, his whole body seemed to straighten with pride. I used to fix everything, he told me. Now I can't even fix this. He held up his trembling hand, a sad smile pulling at his lips. Then I met June, sharp-eyed, still clinging to pieces of her old fire. She showed me a worn photo of her grandson, a young boy with a bright grin. He hasn't called in 6 years, she whispered, but I keep the photo clean, just in case. Each story carved a deeper ache inside me. These weren't strangers, they were mirrors. People who had loved, lived, raised families, built entire lives. And yet here they were, discarded like old furniture no one wanted anymore. And I knew, if it weren't for the secret ticket tucked in my bag, I would have become one of them. That night, as I lay on the lumpy mattress staring at the ceiling, stained with watermarks, the reality of everything settled over me like heavy fog. Daniel hadn't brought me here because he cared about my health. He had brought me here because it was easier for him, easier to forget, easier to walk away, easier to pretend I no longer existed. But I existed, and I wasn't done yet. I felt the lottery ticket beneath my pillow, my last lifeline, my way out, my proof that the story wasn't ending here. Not for me. I spent the entire night planning. Quietly, carefully, I would play the role they expected, a fragile old woman with no fight left. Let them underestimate me. Because in the morning, I was going to get out. Not with a scene, not with screams, but with precision. I just needed one little detail to fall into place. And that chance came sooner than I expected, disguised as a single favor at the front desk the very next morning. The next morning, I walked toward the front desk with my handbag clutched tight against my side. My plan wasn't perfect, but it was the only plan I had. I kept my posture slightly slouched, my voice trembling, my steps unsteady. Let them see what they wanted to see. Let them believe I was harmless. The woman behind the desk, Sharon, looked exactly as tired as the day before. Her name tag dangled sideways, and she tapped her pen rhythmically against a crossword puzzle. I cleared my throat softly. "Excuse me, dear." She didn't bother looking up. "Ma'am, I need to go to the bank," I said, trying to infuse my voice with as much fragility as I could muster. "I have a few bills that need paying. Important ones." Her pen stopped mid-tap. She finally lifted her eyes, squinting as though deciding whether I was worth the trouble. "Don't you have family to handle that?" she muttered. "My son is busy," I whispered, making sure my voice cracked just enough to sound believable. "I don't want to fall behind on essential payments." The way her expression softened told me I'd hit the right chord. Sympathy for the helpless. People always fall for that. "I'll need to get approval," she sighed. approval, forms, delays. I nodded meekly, hiding the burn of impatience in my chest. If she only knew what kind of bill I needed to take care of. It took 2 full days of waiting, 2 days of pleading, 2 days of paperwork handled slower than drying paint, 2 days of meals I barely tasted, and nights where I pressed the lottery ticket against my heart until sleep took me. But finally, they approved it. An escort was mandatory, of course, liability reasons, as if I was going to sprint off into the woods like some runaway teenager. They assigned me a young nurse named Becky, all bubblegum scent and half-distracted smiles. Her bright pink shoes squeaked with every step, and she scrolled on her phone more than she looked at me. Good. Someone inattentive was exactly what I needed. The morning of the bank trip, I dressed in my best outfit, not much, but neat, and tucked my handbag securely under my arm. My entire future rested inside it. Becky barely walked me to the entrance before waving lazily. I'll wait in the parking lot. Rules. Perfect. Inside, the bank was a different world. Clean, quiet, bright. The air smelled of printer ink and citrus cleaner. A taste of freedom I hadn't felt in weeks. I approached the first teller. I need to speak with a manager, please. She blinked at me, eyes flicking to my trembling hands. Something in her expression shifted. She nodded and hurried away. Moments later, a man in a crisp suit appeared. I'm Mr. Rayford, branch manager. How can I help you? I leaned in, lowering my voice. I need help with something life-changing. And when I showed him what was hidden in my handbag, his entire face drained of color, because he knew instantly my life was about to explode in ways neither of us were prepared for. There are moments in life when the air shifts, when you can feel destiny leaning over your shoulder. That was the expression on Mr. Rayford's face the second he examined the lottery ticket sealed in my little plastic sandwich bag. He didn't even try to hide his shock. His eyebrows rose, then locked into a tight line as he exhaled slowly. Ma'am, he whispered, adjusting his glasses. If this is legitimate, and it appears to be, you are sitting on something worth more than most people see in a lifetime. My hands trembled in my lap. I need to stay safe, I said. I can't let my family know. Not yet. He studied me for a moment, then gave a simple nod that carried more weight than any words. Stay right here, he said, and disappeared into the back. 15 minutes later, he returned with another man, a bit older, with silver hair and a polished leather briefcase that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. His presence filled the room instantly, calm but sharp, like someone who understood high stakes. This is Mr. Whitmore, the manager said. He's an attorney we trust with delicate matters. The attorney took a seat, folded his hands on the table, and met my gaze with a seriousness that made my heartbeat settle. Mrs. Harrington, he began, what you've brought in is no ordinary matter. And if you truly want to remain invisible, We'll need to move carefully, quietly, professionally. I nodded. I can't go back to Willow Haven. Not like this. Not ever. We'll start by verifying the ticket privately, he said. Then we'll set up legal protections, trusts, anonymity layers. Your identity will be sealed off from public release. It all sounded like magic. Heavy, complicated, life-changing magic. The next few hours were a blur. Papers reviewed, calls placed, documents signed, all behind a closed door, away from curious eyes. By the time we finished, Mr. Whitmore closed his folder with a decisive snap. The winnings will be secured under a blind trust, he said. Your son will not be able to access anything, not unless you give explicit permission. You will have complete control of your assets. My throat tightened. Thank you, I whispered. You have no idea what this means. I do, he said quietly. More than you know. When they walked me back to the lobby, Becky was still in the car scrolling her phone, completely unaware that her sleepy passenger was now one of the wealthiest residents in the entire state. I slid into the passenger seat, closed the door, and held my handbag like a lifeline, because it was. Back at Willow Haven, I returned to my room, heart racing with both fear and exhilaration. I wasn't trapped anymore. I had power, options, a way out. But escaping wouldn't be simple. I needed to move carefully, strategically. And as fate would have it, a surprising opportunity came to me sooner than expected, delivered by a doctor carrying a stack of paperwork and a look of resignation. Because with one signature, I realized I might be walking out of that facility for good. The doctor who walked into my room later that afternoon looked exhausted, as if he'd been fighting a losing battle long before I arrived at Willow Haven. He carried a clipboard thick with forms and medical notes that didn't belong to me. His glasses slid halfway down his nose when he spoke. Mrs. Harrington, he said, clearing his throat, I've reviewed your file, and it appears there may have been a misunderstanding about your care level. I kept my face blank, but inside, hope sparked like a match. A misunderstanding, I echoed softly. He nodded, flipping to a page highlighted in yellow. Based on your medical history, you don't meet the criteria for long-term institutional care, especially not with your new documentation. New documentation, the ones Mr. Whitmore had arranged. Documents showing I had resources, independence, and the means for private in-home support. All legal, all airtight. That means, the doctor continued, you're eligible for discharge as early as today. Today. My heart thudded against my ribs. I can leave? Yes. He hesitated. Assuming you have a safe plan for aftercare. I folded my trembling hands over the handbag resting on my lap. I do. He didn't question me further. Didn't ask what had changed. Didn't ask where I was going. Perhaps he sensed I'd already been through enough. Or perhaps he had seen one too many forgotten elders pushed into corners they didn't belong. Whatever the reason, He signed the final form with a simple stroke of his pen. "You're free to go," he said quietly. Those 4 words nearly brought me to tears. No congratulations, no kindness from the staff, no farewell. Just a nurse rolling my small suitcase behind me, and Becky, sweet, oblivious Becky, escorting me to the front door. Chewing gum like this was any other errand. The air outside tasted different, cleaner, sharp with freedom. A black town car pulled up to the curb, shiny and sleek, far too elegant for a place like Willow Haven. The driver stepped out, dressed in a crisp suit. He gave me a respectful nod. "Mrs. Harrington, Mr. Whitmore sent me." I swallowed hard, overwhelmed. I wasn't imagining this. My escape was real. Becky waved absently as the door closed behind me. She didn't understand. She just watched me step out of a tomb and back into the world of the living. I settled into the back seat, sinking into leather that smelled new and expensive. As we drove away, Willow Haven grew smaller in the window. The cracked sign, the dim hallway, the forgotten faces. I whispered under my breath, "Never again." In less than an hour, we approached a quiet, gated community on the outskirts of town, lined with tall pines, stone walkways, and houses that looked like magazine covers. One of them was about to become mine, but I didn't yet realize freedom was only the beginning. The real storm hadn't even started. When the car stopped, I stepped out onto the driveway of a home that didn't feel real. The house rose gracefully from neatly trimmed lawns, its stone exterior glowing under the afternoon sun. Wide windows reflected the tall pine trees that surrounded the property, and the quiet hum of wind chimes drifted from the porch. For a moment, I felt like an intruder in someone else's life, someone wealthier, stronger, younger. But the driver handed me a single silver key with a soft bow of his head. "This is your new home, Mrs. Harrington." The words settled over me like warm sunlight. Inside, the house smelled of new paint and polished wood. The floors gleamed beneath my shoes, and the living room opened into a sun-filled kitchen with marble counters that looked too beautiful to touch. The cabinets were filled with dishes I didn't buy, the fridge stocked with food I didn't ask for, and the furniture arranged in a way that made the place feel both elegant and safe. "Mr. Whitmore handled the setup," the driver explained. "He said you should have comfort after everything." Comfort. The word felt foreign in my mouth. For years, comfort had been something I'd watched other people enjoy, something I brushed past in store windows, something I convinced myself I didn't need. But here, in this quiet, warm space, I finally felt like my life wasn't just restarting, it was unfolding. Over the next few days, everything transformed at a dizzying pace. A new wardrobe arrived, soft sweaters, warm coats, shoes that didn't pinch my aching feet. A sleek, deep blue car was delivered to my driveway, still smelling of leather and possibility. I visited a salon for the first time in decades, letting someone wash and style my thinning hair while I stared at my own reflection, barely recognizing the woman looking back at me. I bought candles that smelled of vanilla and cedar, blankets softer than anything I'd ever owned, a small radio that filled the house with music, turning empty rooms into places that felt alive. Every morning, I opened the blinds just to savor the golden light spilling onto the floors. And every night, I slept deeply, without fear for the first time in years. But amid all this newness, one thing stayed constant. I told no one, especially not Daniel. He had made his choices, and now I made mine. Still, a small ache tugged at me each time I thought about the people I'd left behind at Willow Haven, Mary tracing colors she could no longer see, Thomas struggling to lift a fork, June clutching her grandson's faded photo. They deserved more than the life they were given. My fortune couldn't fix everything, but it could fix something. So I started quietly, a donation here, a shipment there. Art supplies, new game sets, a television, real chairs, warm blankets. I didn't attach my name. I didn't want recognition. I just wanted them to feel seen. But good deeds have a way of spreading whispers. And those whispers started weaving their way through Willow Haven, reaching exactly the one person I prayed would never hear them. Because the moment Daniel learned I had vanished, and gifts started pouring into Willow Haven, he began hunting for answers. And he would soon come knocking on my door. It happened on a cool autumn afternoon, the kind where leaves skip across the driveway like children playing tag. I had just finished watering the potted plants by the porch when a sharp knock echoed through the quiet air. I didn't need to look through the peephole. A mother knows. Daniel stood there, shoulders stiff, eyes darting around as if searching for something he'd misplaced, or something he thought he deserved. His attempt at a smile was painfully forced. "Mom," he said, voice stretched tight. "You moved." I opened the door only halfway, letting sunlight pour between us like a barrier. "You didn't seem very interested in where I was," I replied calmly, "so I didn't think I needed to tell you." His mouth twitched. "Mom, come on." I was worried. "No," I said softly. "You were relieved." The words hit him harder than I expected. He swallowed, looking everywhere except at me. The wind rustled through the trees, filling the silence he didn't know how to escape. He finally gathered himself. "I heard you left the facility," he said. "Everyone's talking about some lady who donated a bunch of stuff. Thought maybe, I don't know, maybe that was you." I didn't answer. His eyes sharpened, a predator scenting something valuable. "How did you afford all this?" he asked, his gaze sliding over the house, the porch, the shiny car gleaming in the driveway. There it was, the real reason he'd come. "I managed," I said, my tone cool. "On my own." His jaw clenched. He took a small step forward, but I didn't move to let him in. "I'm your son, Mom," he said. "Don't you think I should know what's going on with you?" "I think," I answered, keeping my voice steady, that when you left me in that place without a second thought, you made your feelings very clear. He flinched, an involuntary twitch of guilt or frustration. I couldn't tell. He exhaled slowly. Look, I'm sorry for everything. I was stressed. I didn't know what else to do. I can do better. Just let me try. Apologies from him felt like sand slipping through fingers, impossible to hold, impossible to trust. But loneliness, that was real. The house, for all its warmth, had grown too quiet, too still, too empty. So I loosened my grip on the door just an inch. He visited again the next day, then the next. He started bringing small gestures, groceries, old photos, even tulips, the flowers he remembered from my garden years ago. Slowly, painfully, a part of my heart began to thaw. Maybe he had made a mistake. Maybe he was changing. Maybe he was trying. I wanted to believe. So when he offered me a homemade smoothie one afternoon, green, vibrant, promising vitamins and energy, I accepted it with a shaky smile. I should have trusted the bitterness that lingered on my tongue. Within minutes, the world tilted, my vision blurred, my heart thrashed like a trapped bird. I reached for him, terrified, his face blurred, his voice twisted, and then total darkness. When I woke up in the hospital, the truth hit me harder than any fall. This time, someone wanted me gone for good. The hospital lights glared above me like interrogators. Their cold brightness made my head throb as consciousness crept back in pieces. Beeping machines surrounded me. An IV dripped into my arm. My chest rose in shallow, shaky breaths. A nurse adjusted the monitor beside me. You're lucky, she said. Whatever was in your system, it could have been much worse. Worse. A word that sat like ice in my veins. I'd never had allergies, never reacted to food or medicine in my life. So why had that smoothie nearly killed me? Before I could ask, I saw him standing in the doorway, wringing his hands like a nervous child. Daniel. His eyes were wide, his voice soft and frantic as he rushed to my side. Mom, thank God. I was so scared. His tone too smooth, too rehearsed. A knot twisted in my stomach. He stayed by my bed for hours, refusing to leave. He brought flowers, fluffed pillows, kissed my forehead. Anyone else would have seen a devoted son, but I had lived long enough to know the difference between guilt and fear of being caught. And his eyes, those were the eyes of a man terrified of what I might remember. Once I was discharged, he insisted I couldn't be alone, that I needed real help, that he had found someone reliable, a private nurse named Mara. She moved into my house the next day. Mara was polite at first, efficient, quiet, but she watched everything. She kept my medications locked away. She handed me pills without labels. She hovered close, too close, like a shadow with a heartbeat. And each night I felt weaker, sleepier, wrong. But the night I overheard her whispering into her phone outside my bedroom, tomorrow's dosage will be enough. She won't wake up. The truth shattered through the fog. Daniel wasn't just neglectful. He wasn't just selfish. He was trying to finish what the smoothie had started. Fear surged through me, clearing every drug from my veins in pure adrenaline. I slipped out of bed, clutching my handbag, the same handbag that had carried me through everything, and stumbled into the freezing night. I didn't stop until the neon glow of a convenience store flickered ahead. I threw myself inside, gasping, sobbing, begging for help. The terrified clerk called 911. The police arrived within minutes, and then everything unraveled. Investigators searched my home. They found altered medication bottles, notes calculating doses, bank transfers from Daniel to Mara, emails, plans. It was all there, every ugly detail. The courtroom weeks later was cold and quiet. Daniel sat across from me, thinner, paler, hiding behind a suit that didn't fit the man he had become. I testified with a steady voice, not out of revenge, but out of survival. When the verdict was read, he looked at me, not with hate, not with remorse, but with a hollow emptiness that told me he never truly knew me and at maybe all. I never truly knew him. After the trial, I stood outside the courthouse, breathing in the cold air. I should have felt victorious, but victory felt too heavy, too sad, too final. I had lost a son, but I had found myself, my strength, my voice, my life. Now, most mornings, I sit on the porch of the home I built from ashes, sipping my coffee as the sun crawls over the horizon. I survived. I healed. I rebuilt. And every sunrise reminds me, some endings are not tragedies. Some endings are freedom. Thank you for listening.